Hi everyone, I'm Kyung Lee from. I'm going to present our work. This is your present speech. If you receive a message on your cell phone like this, nuclear missile heading to Seoul, yeah, how, how? So this emergency alerts where in the U.S. Also, FEMA is responsible for operating all our messages to the public. This where is really effective for very urgent incidents such as a kidnap cases and informing the fast-moving fire in California. Last year, there were two incidents that showed the effectiveness of where. When the Hawaiian people received this message, ballistic missile threats inbound to Hawaii, a lot of Hawaiian people panicked and ran out to find the shelters. In the case of this presidential alert test, it showed that the presidential alert can be sent across all of the US. So from these recent incidents, we are worried about the misuse of where. What will happen if a terrorist intentionally send a fake message to public? So is it possible to launch an alert spoofing attack? And what is the impact of such an attack? Also, how do you prevent this attack? So these are our contributions. We found the security hole of the where in LTE networks. And we verified the feasibility of the alert spoofing attack. Also, we discussed several possible solutions to defend this attack. There are three types of alerts. The presidential alert is issued by the US president to all of the US. The imminent threats alert is about serious threats to life and property, such as severe weather. The amber alert is about missing or kidnapped children. In the case of the presidential alert, the user cannot block this alert message. As you can see in these screenshots, there is no switches to turn off the reception of presidential alert. So if someone sends a fake message using presidential alert, all where capable cell phones will receive this message. Before knowing how to perform this attack, we need to know how this alert is transmitted. At first, an authorized government official generates the message and sends it to the CBC cell broadcast center of each network provider. Then, after receiving the message, the CBC forwards this message to the MME, Mobility Management Entity. Then the MME forwards the message. eNode B is the cell tower of 4G LTE networks. After the eNode B receives and finally, you receives it and displays it. So for a preliminary investigation, we constructed a testbed that can operate the where using open source evolved packet core EPC and commercial off-the-shelf COTS eNode B. Also, we used an attenuator and a shield box to prevent the signal leaking and not to interrupt the normal LTE users. We put this alert message into the MME, and the MME forwarded it to the eNode B. As a result, the UE successfully received the alert message. Using our testbed, we could conduct several experiments. As a result, we could know that the smartphone can receive the alert message regardless of the SIM card and authentication. Before explaining the attack procedure, I'm going to explain the general connection procedure between smartphone and eNode B. First, when the UE is turned on, it finds nearby eNode Bs and distinguishes eNode Bs using the PCI, Physical Cell Identifier. Then it compares the signal power of eNode Bs, and then it starts to connect to the strongest power eNode B. At first, UE receives the MIB, a master information block. UE receives it every 40 milliseconds, and the MIB contains very important and essential information such as system frame number and system bandwidth. Then you will receive the SIB1, System Information Block Type 1. You will receive the SIB1 every 80 milliseconds. SIB1 also has very important information such as service providers information and other SIB scheduling information. After receiving SIB1, the UE knows the other SIB's periodicity, so it can receive other SIBs. Then you will receive the MIB and SIB1 and other SIBs continuously. After receiving essential information for communication, the UE constructs another channel and starts the authentication and key agreement procedure. If this procedure is successfully finished, the UE and MME shares a key, and using this key, they encrypt and decrypt data. Now I'm going to explain how to UE receive the alert message. When MME receives the alert message from the CBC, it forces the eNode B. Then eNode B makes SIB12 and put alert message into the SIB12. And using SIB1, eNode B lets UE know the periodicity of SIB12. Then it broadcasts the SIB12 message, and then UE receives it and displays it. The problem is that UE can receive the alert message regardless of authentication. When at first UE is turned on, UE tries to connect the eNode B, and it receives the MIB, SIB1, and other SIBs. Then the UE starts to authenticate the network. But if at least one SIB12 is transmitted before the authentication or during the authentication procedure, UE receives it, the alert, and display it. So now I'm going to explain how to perform the attack. Before explaining it, I'd like to introduce you the states of UEs. UE has two states, idle and active states. When UE is continuously transmit and receive data, it maintains the active states. On the other hand, when UE is powered on, or if there is no data transmission, after the inactivity timer, typically 10 seconds, it switches to the idle state. Note that typically a UE maintains the idle state in the majority of time to save power. This is because most people don't use their smartphone all day long. During the idle states, the UE periodically wakes up and performs cell measurement. During the cell measurement, if UE finds a stronger signal emitting eNode B, it performs cell reselection. Then UE tries to connect to the new eNode B, and it receives MIB and SIB1. And if the new eNode B sends a SIB12, UE receives the alert and displays it. Second case is attack to active state UE. As I mentioned before, if there is a data transmission, UE maintains the active states. During active states, if UE finds a stronger signal eNode B, handover is triggered. To perform handover, UE sends measurement report, including user's information, to the MME. But MME doesn't know the user's information. The MME rejects the handover. So basically, it is hard to attack the active state UE. So how to attack the active state UE? The answer is the power of the signal. If a new cell emits a much stronger signal, the radio link failure will occur. Due to RLF, the UE is released and switches to the idle state. So the following attack method is same as the attack to the idle UE. So now we know how to perform the attack. So from now, let's check out how effectively can we perform the attack with respect to attack success rate and attack coverage. To conduct the experiment, we made two types of spoofer. For the spoofer, On SDR, software-defined radio-based eNode B and COTS eNode B were used, respectively. This is the structure of the experimental setup. Using open source EPC and COTS eNode B, we made an LTE network that works almost same as a commercial network. We named this network SecureNet. Also, we made a spoofer using both COTS eNode B and an SDR eNode B. We put a UEs in the shield box and make UEs connect and authenticate the SecureNet. In this state, we made the spoofers and the alerts into the shield box. We changed the signal power of spoofer from 1 dB to 25 dB above the signal power of SecureNet. Also, we experiment with SecureNet and spoofers PCI differently and also changed the PCI same. And also, we performed the experiment on both idle UEs and active UEs. We tested a lot of UEs, as you can see, and all of these UEs received the alert message. These are the experimental results. As you can see, the stronger the signal from the spoofer, the higher the attack success rate. Also, attacking idle UEs is much easier than active UEs. In addition, for idle UEs, when the PCI was different, it was easy to attack. On the other hand, for active UEs, when the PCI was same, it was easy to attack. From the previous experiment, we could estimate the attack coverage of spoofer. At first, we measured RSRP, reference signal power, reference signal received power from a 0.1 watt legitimate eNode B, and we could draw this line by selecting the highest RSRP at each distance. From the previous experiment, we could draw new graphs. For example, when UE's RSRP from the legitimate eNode B is minus 100 dBm, and an attacker used 0.1 watt spoofer, about 44 meter is the range to attack either UEs with 90% attack success rate, and with about 23 meter is the range to attack active UEs with 90% attack success rate. From the result of previous experiments, we could make two practical attack scenarios, the indoor attack and outdoor attack. In each section of our school's engineering center building, we checked the RSRP from the closest AT&T cell tower. This building is very huge and consists of a lot of classrooms and offices, so the distribution of RSRP is very complicated. We put on 0.1 watt eNode B at the center of the building and make it emit a signal without alert message. We use the EBS band for which we have a spectrum license. We check the RSRP from our EBS band eNode B in each section of the building. Finally, from the result of the previous experiment, we could draw these images. For example, when attacking either UEs using 0.1 watt eNode B, about a quarter of this building is attacked with 90% success rate. We also measured RSRP from an AT&T cell tower at the football stadium in our school. Because it was hard to perform an experiment in the outdoors, so we used the NS3 simulator. In this simulator, we put 4 1 watt power eNode Bs at the vicinity of the stadium. In the case of attacking idle UEs, except this one section, all sections of the stems are attacked with 90% attack success rate. So, how to defend this attack? There are several potential defenses. Note that all these defenses are not perfect solution. All defenses have pros and cons, and we believe these defenses can be the stepping stone of future research. The first is implementing the digital signature in the alert. To implement the digital signature, the public key of the sender, the cell broadcast entity, must be distributed to the UEs. If the CVE send an alert message and digital signature together, the UE decrypts the digital signature and can check the authenticity and integrity of the message. Digital signature is very secure and robust solution. But how to distribute the public key is very complicated. Also, there are a lot of CVEs such as police, firefighters, weather forecasters. So UE has to store a lot of public key inside of them. The second is accepting all the message when UE authenticates the network. When a UE trusts the network, the UE receives the alert message. On the other hand, if the UE does not trust the network, the UE discards the message. This solution is really simple, so easy to apply. Also, it does not need any network modification. However, accessibility is limited. For example, non-subscriber or UE temporarily in the unauthenticated state will discard the message. The third is fingerprinting. In our town, we verified that 4 major network providers' SIB message patterns and contents were different. Also, channel quality such as RSRP and cell load information can be measured by the UE. So using various characteristics of the legitimate signal, the UE could distinguish a malicious inode B. This solution also does not need to modify the network. But if an attacker could 100% impersonate the legitimate signal, it would be really hard to distinguish the malicious inode B. The last solution we can think is providing an inode B location. UE can estimate the distance from the inode B using RSS, reference signal strength. So using an inode B location database in the internet, a UE can determine whether the alert is trusted or not. This solution also does not need modification of network, but UEs which cannot access the internet, such as non-subscriber or no SIM card UE, cannot distinguish the malicious inode B. So I'd like to conclude this presentation like this. The alert spoofing attack is very easy to perform, but very hard to defend. In this paper, we verified the feasibility of the alert spoofing attack. But also, this attack also can be done on 5G network because it is using same alert transmitting method. So government, standardization, organizations, network providers, and manufacturers have to collaborate to defend this attack. Thank you. Any questions?